Great to have you here, all the way from Sweden, Stockholm. Right next to me, Linnea, Ljungmark. And in terms of our panel session, she has an interesting perspective because she actually started out in back office support for sales and then worked her way all the way to the front, now being an entrepreneur in her own right. So she used to do sales for Pro Audio and Lightning, and then she joined Paris-based lighting manufacturer Ayrton. She has, in the meantime, also been an ambassador for women in lighting, something we'll talk on later on, and has her very own company for distribution called Top Stage in Stockholm. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
In the middle is Yasi, our world-famous guitarist, actually named one of the 20 best female guitarists in the world for years already. As such, she had the pleasure, for example, to perform the Austrian national anthem at the Grand Prix of Formula One in Austria. She is regularly performing for No Angels. Helene Fischer is touring herself, of course, with her own music. And actually, her career started already when being only 14 years old, when famous Steve Vai invited her to join him on stage. And I think you're still jamming together today.
Yeah, it's really nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Yasi. And on the far outside, Anouk Wipprecht. She is a high-tech fashion designer, so she merges fashion or high fashion with engineering, with science, with interaction and user experience design. And she has designed dresses, for example, that have a robotic spider that attack you if you come too close. She has developed a dress that can mix you a perfect gin tonic, or something that I really love, an intelligent dress that actually supports children with ADHS.
ADHD.
ADHD, yes. ADHD, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Now, we have so many topics to talk about, but let's start a little bit with the fun side. At least Yasi, you're both also in the industry, so since it is still a little bit of rock and roll, hopefully, if you think back over your career, what was the worst moment you can remember in your touring, Yasi?
I mean, there have been quite a few, so it depends on what you take, but for me, quite a few of the worst experiences are if you're in a really small, dirty club and you have an audience where everyone's drunk before you even start a show, and you don't have a backstage. For me, that's like as worse as it can get, because there's no way for you to go away from people for a bit. And then it gets even worse when you're a female artist on stage and everyone's drunk and the guys start like... I had one moment where a guy came with like 10 euros and he wanted to put it like right there. So that's really bad. That's worst experience. But yeah, there would be a lot over the years. But I mean, that's rock and roll.
We'll come back to that topic and discuss it a little bit at length in the middle of our panel session. And of course, we'll come back to your best experience, but we'll save that for the end of the panel.
Okay.
Now, that's literally from the touring business. Linnea, you started out in sales. Sales also actually is a very male-dominant industry that also comes along with a lot of masculinity. I think of all these Hollywood movies of sales teams really going for it, hyping themselves up. In your sales experience, independently from being a woman, just generally, your worst experience in your career?
That's a difficult one. Wow. The worst experience? Well, it was probably at sort of a get-together for industry professionals, and I was, as usual, as always, the only woman, and it was quite a bit of drinking going on and dinner and stuff, and then afterwards at the bar, this sort of top manager is just like suddenly just kissing me.
Oh my God.
Like exactly, like what? Oh my God, that was actually horrible.
That's interesting. You know, I took this question because last year we had two DJs here, two male DJs, right? And it was just about, I wanted to, have some like fun rock and roll stories, like, and then our tour bus broke down, or we ended up on an island without boats. But it's funny that already by asking two women, your worst experience has to do with the fact that you're a woman and somebody doesn't respect your borders. So
Yeah, exactly.
if I would have two guys sitting here, the stories probably would have been very different, and it would have been a story you laugh about or anything. But those are the stories that are really cringe.
It's true, and I just thought that when I heard your story, and I wasn't aware what you're going to tell, but I feel like probably, yeah, most women would have those kind of experiences. And for us, that's like, yeah, the worst things that happen, and we have to deal with it. And that's about, yeah, women in the industry.
Anouk, you're in
Part of
fashion.
it.
That's not rock and roll. And I was expecting maybe you talk about some technical failure, but also you're involved in I know you, for example, designed a dress for a Super Bowl halftime show. You've worked with brands such as Audi, Disney, Cirque du Soleil, so also some live moments. So your worst experience, a technical experience or also a human experience?
It unfortunately doesn't have to do with sexism, which also happens a lot in the technical industry, sort of. But I think when you were asking the question, one of my worst experiences used to be that I was using lipo batteries in my dresses, sort of. And there was one show in where there were a lot of dresses. They had a lot of lipos, and they got taken away at the airport. That was the time that I still use lipo batteries. So basically, I came to a show with my dresses not working, and us having to like scout. It was in the middle of America somewhere. Find these RV stores to find lipo, like 3-cell lipo batteries of 11.1 volts that fit my exact dresses, sort of. So that was
That's the
more
technical story.
problem.
Okay.
And after that, I started to use different battery technologies.
So it's funny, I thought this would be a good way into the panel because usually it's like a fun start and it already went exactly the other way around. But this is exactly why we have this panel, I'm afraid, no? So now you're sitting here is like, why do we need to have a panel about women in a technical profession? Like, why did you say, okay, this is something I want to be on stage for?
Because I think we still have a lot to do, and we can make a difference by talking about it. Because I think women around in technical professions and in male-dominated industries are still experiencing things like this. So, I want to mention it. I want to talk about it so that the women that do suffer from bad stuff don't feel alone or feel that it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to raise awareness and talk about that stuff, especially sexism in the industry, and so that female artists or women in the industry don't feel alone. And I think that's why it's important to speak up about that stuff, to raise awareness and also maybe give the female part of the industry that are involved a different way to think about it, look about it, and interact with it. Give us more safety, give us the space. And just, get a new way of respect in the industry.
Yeah. And also to say to all men, like, this is not okay. And that's where, for example, the Me Too movement, I think it was the beginning of change, and it did make a difference for us. And so that was important.
And I think it's also we're all fighting in our own way to get more females also in the field, especially the tech field. Once by 2030, they want 50% women, and we're not nearly there, sort of, But sexism and such things also prohibit people entering these fields, sort of, So that is why it's important to have different discussions and different dialogues about women being present in any of these businesses, sort of.
We'll come back to the Me Too movement. If we take a step back and you think back to your younger selves at the very beginning of your career, I know, Yasi, for you it was when you were 14 years old. I assume you did not think about the topics we'll be discussing yet, no? Like, what was your original spark where you're like, or did you actually plan to have a career as a guitarist?
No, not at all. I started playing guitar when I was 12, and I just fell in love with the instrument and with music as much as never before. So what I did, I just followed my passion for many, many years, and I didn't question what the future would look like. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to make money, to make it a career. How would that look? I had no idea. I just went for it, and I just followed my passion. And I practiced a lot and kind of trusted the universe that it would kind of show me the way. So that's how I started until I actually started studying music that was the first time when I've kind of started planning and thought, okay, maybe I want to write an album, I want to produce an album, I want to find a band for myself and start playing. But that was when I came back from studying in Boston, so I was 21 at the time, and that's the first time I actually seriously started making plans. Up until then, it was just living my dream and just doing what I love and kind of like trusting that things would align and work out for itself.
Nice. Anouk, how was it for you? Where did you start off, or when did you know this is something that you really want to build your complete career and probably also part of your identity around?
Yeah, I also started when I was 14 with fashion school, couture tailoring, and then when I was 17 years old, I learned myself to code, and then I started into interaction design, machine learning, and robotics, sort of. So that has been my background, from design into engineering.
Nice.
And for me, it was very, in that time, there was not too much interdisciplinary like studies. So I actually needed to do both a design study as in the evening hours and a technical study. And then also hanging around in like hacker spaces and maker spaces in the beginning of 2000 to learn about computers, which were really big at that time.
I can imagine.
How was it for you? Did you always know that you want to build a career in a technical profession or in sales at the very beginning?
No, not really. I grew up in the industry, so I'm following my father's footsteps. So for me, this was, everyday life. Watching him build his company. But I think at some point I just realized that with my experience, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm good at, and this is an industry that I know.
Now, if you think back, I mean, of course, you start because there's something that you're really passionate about, that you're actually really good at, or that you really want to get into detail in. So when was like the first moment where you realized, oh, maybe I have to perform better than my male peers? Like, was there a moment where you're like, okay, I have to be more technical, I have to be more knowledgeable? When did that come up?
I think for me, every time I was playing in a group, for example, they had those summer courses where you could go as a guitar player. So you had like 10 guitar players for 1 week and you would perform. And for me, it's always been, as a female, that you're not getting taken as seriously as the male part. And I can speak for that for myself as well, because I was playing soccer as a kid. And in Germany, soccer, it's changing now, but it's a male-dominated thing. So I kind of always felt, okay, like for me to get the respect, I need to show off more. Yeah. Like when I took the soccer ball, I had to tell and show like how good I can shoot a goal. And then I got the respect, but not going on the field like everyone else. And with the guitar, it was the same. Like everyone is a bit like, yeah, let's see what she can do. And then you kind of have to prove that you can do it. And males don't have to do that. But as a female, and that was the first time I think I did my first course when I was like 13 years old. And so I always knew that that was the way to go. I had to show off in order to gain the respect as a female.
You know what I was wondering? I was announcing you as like among the 20 best female guitarists. Does it make sense to differentiate between a male and female guitarist?
Not for me, and I hope that the future is going to change that. I don't want to be one of the 20 best female guitar players. I mean, it's a different thing even to say who's the best or not, because it's like it's creativity and all that. But yeah, I don't want there to be that there's the females and there's the males. I want it to be one whole thing. And I hope that the future is going to take us there.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's fields where, I don't know, rugby playing, I would imagine it makes sense to have male and female teams, I don't know, but I think in guitar playing, it doesn't have any influence on...
Exactly, whatever instrument, or when it's songwriting, or like if you're creating something, being creative, there doesn't have to be male and female. It's
Anouk, how was it for you? Was it something that you came across as your younger self while studying or while doing your first projects, that you felt like you looked at differently?
Well, one of the things was that in the beginning, when I was like 18, 19, 20, I was sharing the stage a lot with people that were doing robotics pretty high level, and they were all male. And I had a feeling that I needed to wear a suit, and then I wore the suit, and it didn't felt comfortable for me, sort of, you know. So at one point, I was like 19 years old or something. I was like, I put this tattoo on my body. It's the sewing line of a male jacket. So it starts here, goes here, ends there. So for me, it was the suit that I had on. So for me, psychologically, I was like, I'm wearing the suit, and I wore like princess dresses on stage, and my talks were like so much better. So for me, it's kind of like the suit or wearing a suit is kind of in fashion as well. It's very a powerful thing, sort of, you know. But it's also all in your mind, sort of, and that I realized that day, sort of. So yeah, I always have my suit on me.
That's really interesting, yeah.
And the funny thing with you is that you're in two different worlds. On the one hand, you're in fashion. On the other hand, you're in science and engineering. I would imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that in science and engineering, probably there's always more boys or more men than there's women and girls. Whereas in fashion, it might be more even. Or so you're sort of changing between two different cultures. Is that, would that be fair to say?
In a way, yes. But if you look at the fashion schools, it's like 90% females in the fashion schools. But if you look at the designers that are more leading, it's pretty 50-50. You see a lot of male designers, also a lot of fashion designers that come from other professions like architecture and all. So even if it's a very female-dominated study group, the designers sometimes also end up being more male, sort of, you know. So it really depends on how and what and how you see that, I think.
That's interesting because I remember I went to art school and I did study dance. So all the bosses were female because it was female choreographers. And when I went into a different profession, it took a long time to understand the gender pay gap because I came from probably one of the very few worlds where it's the other way around. But so it's interesting to see depending on your career path. Anouk, in your early career, anything where you were like, I know, for example, you're in sales, right? I know a lot of female founders, for example, when they pitch to a VC, usually they end up with less money than their male founder, but they also have to pitch much more technical. They really have to prove that they understand the technology. Is that something you came across in your early sales career? That you have to pitch differently than male colleagues?
Yeah, probably. In 2009, I was hired by my father to be in charge of a lighting distribution company that we'd just acquired. And this was a big deal for me. And I was getting my first business card. And I asked him what it should say on the card. And he said, well, how about office manager? And I thought, and I was thinking, but I'm supposed to be in charge here. That's sort of strange. And so I brought that up with a woman I knew, Assunta. She was at the time MD, or she still is, at Link Cables in Italy. So she was one of the few women in a management position back then. And I told her about what happened, and she just looked really serious, and she said, no, you're a general manager. And so I took that sort of info back to my dad, and I said, I asked Assunta, and he has a lot of respect for her, like a lot. And so in the end, he did put general manager on my first business card. And with that said, I think probably if it would have been my brother, he would have been a general manager immediately.
What's beautiful about that story already, because it's a while ago, and I think it's much less common back then than it is now, that you sort of had a female mentor or role model, right? And how important that is.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And it was at a trade show like this where I would meet her and, talk, and really valuable.
Yeah, but also what Linnea says is it's really important thing. Like, what do we tell the children, right? Like a female, a daughter versus a son, for example. Like the son might be the fighter, and the female might have more caring or such things, maybe less badass things. In this case, like if your brother, what you mentioned, like if he would have gotten the same question, sort of, So all these stories that we tell, the girls growing up versus the men growing up, sort of, that's always kind of where these things start as well,
Speaking of which, if you had a chance to talk to your younger self what would be the one or two things you would tell yourself now that you're an older and established professional and female professional in your industry?
It's okay to make mistakes. Everyone does that. You learn from it.
That's such a general remark, like
Yeah.
that you hear everywhere. You know, like
Yeah.
dare to fail. But I always feel that women feel like they cannot allow themselves as many mistakes as their male colleague, right?
Probably, I used to think that everyone was so much better at everything than I was. And this also, I think, comes back to what we were talking about before, that we sort of always have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm thinking everyone is so much better at this than I am. And I guess it would have been helpful to realize a little bit earlier that that's actually not the case.
Right,
And like
yeah.
that I'm okay. I work hard and that's enough. I work really hard.
Yeah, and I mean, be self-confident. That would be the most important thing. And don't listen to people around you. And it doesn't matter if they're male or female. Don't have people tell you what to do and how to do it. Just be self-confident. Be okay with making mistakes, because everyone makes them. They make you grow. They make you better. And just follow your path and kind of like be proud and.
I'm more badass
Why?
than my brother, by the way. He's also in the industry.
That's very cool. Anything you would like to add, or where you're like, oh, if like Anouk, that would have been great if older Anouk would have come around when I was, I don't know, 20, 25 and told me just X, Y, Z.
No, I think it's the same what you guys are also saying. Like, listen more to your gut feeling, because your gut feeling is saying like, hey, I want to do this or I want to do that. I actually got kicked out of fashion school when I started electronics, because they were like, okay, there should not be electronics on your thing, and I needed to learn to code and all. So I got out and I got into the system again, learning electronics, because I was like, you know, and now the same study asked me to start a course on fashion tech, because they said like, okay, we were wrong, and there is a place and time for like the combination of fashion and technology, sort of. So if I would have listened to them, if I would have not entered the field but left the field, I would not have been doing what I was doing now. So I was listening to my gut feeling. I did want to combine those two and work more interdisciplinary, sort of, you know. So listening to your gut feeling is always a very good thing to do, I think.
That's really interesting, because you're not only are you a female professional in a technical profession, but you are actually also a disruptor, because you're at the forefront of where fashion and science comes together. You know, a lot of stuff, as I understand it, you do hasn't been done before.
Yeah, it was a field that was not
into
there, sort of.
textiles.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
but that also poses a lot of problems, because what I mentioned to you before, I do one third my own work, one time I work for companies, and one third I'm an educator as well. But educating design students into technical professions and educating people with technical profession into design, for example, there's still a lot of like problems, while interdisciplinary research and education is a big thing, sort of, but it still forms a lot of problems, mainly because you do need to have a really good understanding and grounding understanding of basic education in whether that's mathematics or technical, the technical profession, sort of, you know. But I think that's coming more and more.
Now, speaking of actually having sort of like, you know, an older mentor guiding you, that again seems to be something that comes naturally for male professionals. They somehow always have their network. Back then it used to be we go golfing together. I think probably in the event industry, maybe it's we go drinking together after the show or anything. I guess that's where your thinking comes into with Women in Lightning, right? So it seems to be something that needs to be purposely built for female professionals. Is that so?
I think so, yes. And looking back, I wish I would have had a mentor. Like I had, of course, like Assunta, but she was in Italy and I only met her like at trade shows. So yes, definitely. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this Women in Lightning network.
Tell us more about it. So what have you been up to with Women in Lightning? And
So actually, the project was founded by Light Collective. It's a couple of people from the UK, Martin and Sharon. They'll be over on our booth later if you want to come say hi. They founded the project, and in 2020, I joined sort of an online get-together with Women in Lighting, and at that point, it was more into architectural lighting. And I joined there to sort of just check it out, and I felt, for the first time, I did not feel so alone, because I have felt alone, like a lot of times. But joining this online gathering, it was a big moment because I was talking to others like myself, you know. And so that's when we decided to bring entertainment lighting, or to include entertainment lighting at some point in the project as well.
And what do you hear from, I
it's
guess you are talking to a lot of young female professionals
Yes.
as well, like what are their needs, or what are they grateful for, or how can you help them?
I think it's the same thing that I experienced.
Yeah.
It's just meeting, like seeing that there are others like yourself, to not feel alone, because typically you'll be the only woman a lot
Yeah.
of times, and to not feel that is empowering. So we arrange like meetups in different places in the world. We do interviews. The interviews are on the website womeninlighting.com, and they're really fantastic. Like women sharing their stories. So it's really about highlighting the work of women in a very male-dominated industry. Create some space, hold some space.
Just if I may jump in there, I know, for example, something that I do, I'm also, as a moderator, you're always working alone, you don't have immediate colleagues. So for me, it's very important, for me, it's natural to talk to my male colleagues and ask them, hey, how much can you charge for this job? Sort of to know, because the person booking you, they know what they charge 30 people, and they know what's a fair wage and what is not. So I can imagine, specifically for female professionals, with the gender pay gap probably being also real in your industry, it's also important to have this technical exchange, to be like, hey, what were you able to charge for this job or for this? Is that something they need to be discussing?
I don't know too much about that,
Yeah.
to be honest. That's probably within like the freelancer community, which is the big community.
Yeah.
But
I'll pass
answer
that
is, I
ball
don't
to
know.
Yasi then.
Yeah.
Is that something where you see male guitarists earning significantly more?
As far as I know, and from the experiences that I have, luckily, it doesn't seem like there's a gender pay gap
Yeah.
in the professional field that I'm in as a performer. And most of the projects that I'm in, if it's like a band, for example, if I work for Helene Fischer, it's the band and everyone gets paid the same.
Ah, that's nice, yeah.
So I'm really glad that I don't have that struggle in my career field. And then if I get booked as an artist and I get booked for shows with my trio, I wouldn't see that there's a difference. I mean, you don't always talk about that thing, so it's hard to say. But from what I know, there's no gender pay gap, and it's a good thing. That's good.
Same for you, Anouk, in your field?
Yeah, but I think I'm also like you both. Sort of, we're all pretty badass, like specialists in our respective fields. Sort of that I would assume if they ask you, they would even maybe I would get more than a normal engineer, whether that's a male or not. Sort of, because if you become a specialist. And for me, it's pretty niche, sort of.
Yeah.
I do not think that there's too much problems in that regard, but I do work with then a lot of companies in where you see, like, for example, less people in leadership roles as being a female, for example, and that, like, of course, forms, more problems there, sort of. So I think, as you mentioned, then it's for consultants or freelancers, it's slightly different, for specialists. Than companies, sort of. And I think the bigger problem is with companies that female are less likely to be in leadership positions, thus also get less money, sort of.
And there we come back. Sorry, Yasi.
Yeah, I actually, now, the more I think about it, I actually think that in this case, I sometimes might have the chance to get paid more, because in the years I have been asked for jobs where they specifically were looking for a female guitarist
Yeah, that's
as
what I
a
meant.
show effect. And if I know they're looking for a female guitar player and taking Germany, I know I'm kind of the only one they would ask that is close by
Hence
and that
the specialist.
is able, to perform as they wish. I know that I can, like, just raise my price.
But then again, you come back, you need to have the confidence to know you're worth it and ask for it, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And deal with sexism and other things.
Yeah, and but that's something that you mentioned is like people in leadership positions, and we talk just about networks, and often you get into these leadership positions because of networks. So what would you mention to the? I mean, Women in Lightning is not a network that you would access, but do you think there's a need specifically for female-focused networks in your industry as well, or is it something where it doesn't matter as long as you really purposely network?
Yeah, I love it. That's why I know you are at booth C81.
Yes.
And I'm going to find you.
Yeah.
But so I roam a lot actually at the Messe, at Formnext. It's one of the biggest shows for 3D printing and AM, so additive manufacturing. It's always in November. That's one of the things that I always come to the Messe in Frankfurt for. And there we have women in 3D printing. So wherever you have a community, there's also the women in there, sort of, So I'm waiting for the time that there's a network event for men in 3D printing, but there's not because it's not really needed, sort of. But I think it's always these events are really good. They're really, they're really nice because people can let their guards down. You don't need to. You see, people are not competitive. They're just there for fun. They can have fun, and I think that's creating just a lot of. Good vibes and good energy, sort of, So whenever there's always a women in event, so women in Lightning or women in 3D printing or women in engineering, for me that's always a way to go there and to say hi and to be part of that as well.
It's sort of like, you have to strike a balance, right? You want to boost female professionals, but you don't want to always have females just taking place in a panel on female professionals or in the diversity panel. So it's sort of, there has to be an equilibrium where you're just as an expert on stage or as a speaker, and then you also have that dedicated safe space networking.
Yeah. And I also want to mention that the male supporters is also a very important part of the Women in Lighting project. So that's where actually men are welcome in this community as male supporters.
I think for us in the performance part, it's a bit different. I'm glad that once you're part of a band and you proved your spot as a female part of it, which is you need to prove yourself a bit more. But once that is done, it's a band. So there's in performance, in the performance section, you don't need a networking setup where you as the female parts of the group can meet up and be that one thing. It's a band. And I'm glad that we're all, and I'm also, that's the mindset that I take when I go there. I'm not focusing on me being the female part of the band. A lot of the times I'm the only female part, and then there's 6 to 7 male musicians, and I'm the only female. But then I'm not gonna focus on that. I just want to be part of the group. I just want to be a nice person. I just want to be cool. I want to be fun to hang around with. I want to be professional in every part of my field, and then I'm just a part of the thing. And I feel like my male acts of the group, they also don't see me as the female part. So once that first step is taken, it's a group, and I'm glad that the performing industry is a bit different. I think once you're part of the technical side or everything, it's so important to have the female aspects, to have the female networking groups. But in the performance way, we're a bit it's the band.
All three of you have been in your career for quite a while already. So have you noticed that something has really changed with Me Too in the recent years? You just mentioned 5 minutes ago, you said again, then you have to deal with the sexism. So is it something that's still going on today, or has there been a positive development that you can really feel a difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me think of it a little bit.
Think a bit. I'll pass on the ball, and also think about how you deal with it. Ideally, if you still have to face it. Yeah, because I just remember just 2 days ago, I spoke to a female friend of mine, same age as me. She's been in a call with 5 guys. One was 70, and after half an hour, one of the guys was just like, "Hey Maria, smile a bit." It's nothing he would have ever said to any of the other guys. In 2025, you know?
Yeah. Oh, smile. Yeah. That's a good one. So, yeah, definitely huge difference. So when I came here first time, like 15 years ago, this was full of, the messe was full of so-called like booth babes. Okay, like lightly dressed women serving drinks. And I felt at some point, I felt like I'm the only woman here who's not a booth babe. And I felt sometimes that men would look at me and think like, what is she doing here? When are the drinks coming? And so that was really not nice. And so that's changed finally. And I think that's, it's just a lot more professional these days.
Yeah, and I guess maybe we can be a part of that change. Like if I talk for myself, I've always been, whatever outfit I choose, I kind of had in mind that I don't want to get into the position where sexism can take place, and I kind of forced it. Or like I feel a lot of times people tell, well, if you dress up like this, don't, like it's what you do, you kind of want people to look at you that way. So I actually have that in the back of my mind when I choose my outfits.
And still today. So, I mean, it's something where underneath it is you don't feel safe.
Exactly, yeah. So I wouldn't take like really hot short pants or like a skirt and dress up with less clothing because I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I need my safety. It's kind of like you said with your with the business suit. It's kind of a way for me to feel safe. And yeah, so, but I think it's also important that we kind of wear that and take that with us when we walk around here, that there's more to it. There's more to me as a female guitar player than my outfit and looking at my boobs or whatever. And that's kind of like what I take with me when I go out as an artist.
Yeah, I think, fashion, of course, plays a big thing on communication. It's non-verbally communicating, things that we might say or we speak about, sort of. So that's always the interesting thing about fashion and the things that we wear, sort of. So that's definitely, something in what I also mentioned of the suit and all of that stuff. In regards to Me Too, I just had to think of it. I still don't know a good answer. But I've been in the US for 12 years. I just recently came back because US got a little bit too silly. I'm not going to talk about politics and all. But there the Me Too whole thing had a bigger impact, I think, than in Europe because it was more needed in America, sort of, you know. The only thing is that sometimes these things come into place and they become too extreme, whether that is somebody doing yoga and gets too extreme or whatever. Any extremities, I think, are not super good, and it really bounced in there, sort of, you know. And even like men got scared and all of that stuff. And when that happens, then it's just a little bit too much out there. But it was definitely needed. But you also don't want to create an sort of society in where you have that problem. Like, oh, can I talk to you? Oh, you know. So more natural dialogues. What you also said, like, don't say it's a woman, it's a female and a male, but we are all human. And I think that's more of the conversation that we want to have, sort of, you know, around that. But that did created that a little bit more, that dialogue. And I think that is that's a more beautiful conversation to have instead of you're a man and you're a female and all of that stuff. And that's like what you try to get to, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I like how you say the extremes, because that's not good. In whatever, if we talk about clothing going to extreme in one direction or the other, and as you said with the Me Too, there's a female, there's the male part as well. And I talked to a lot of men in the industry that said, like, now I'm actually scared because I don't know if it's okay for me to actually help you if you have to carry your guitars around or open the door for you. So
well, let's
whatever,
be honest.
It's
it's okay for men to be scared a little bit too for some while,
bit,
no?
Yeah, but let's try to stay away from any kind of extreme in whatever direction it goes, and just try to find the perfect balance. And
now, maybe let's get back to why you're doing what you're doing, independently whether you're female or not. You went from working as an employee to working as an entrepreneur. So what does that come with? Like, what sort of are the risks or the things you wish you would have known before? And what tells you, nevertheless, this is why I do it every day. This is what I love about it.
Okay, well, that's a good question. Wow, it comes with a lot of work, that's for sure. You have to live it. Like, that's the only way. You live it, you breathe it. You just, as an entrepreneur, that's the way.
Yeah, that's well said. You have to live it. That's how I feel about playing guitar and being a musician. It's my life. It's like I feel like I couldn't breathe without music and my guitar. So that's what I got. And the downside is, for me as a self-employed musician, I don't know what the future is going to bring. I can work my way and kind of plan a bit, but there's so much that I don't know. So I don't have safety when I look into the future. And that's maybe a risk to take, but it's totally worth taking, because I'm like, I wouldn't be who I am without guitar and music. So, yeah.
With 5 minutes, yeah? Oh, you want to add something? No, in terms of trends, I think what's the difficulty is, if you're young and you're building a career in a technical profession, it's really hard probably to judge what horse do I bet on. Is like, do I really want to learn about this technology, or is it obsolete in 5 years because AI has taken over, or we're not going to need these kind of technicians anymore? So where is your industry heading? Where would you be like, okay, this is really a path you should look into because it's a really huge development for the next years? And so what trends are you seeing where you're like, check this out if you're really at the beginning of your career?
I can, or is it for Linnea?
No, for all three of you, yeah.
So I'm an educator, so I work for a lot of the engineering schools, like all over the world. I have currently 140 students, and I get a lot from my students, especially women, like, hey, what about AI? It's a big fear, sort of, you know. Well, from the software side, I try to tell them, from the software side, okay, yeah, things are being taken over, but anything that you're doing with hardware, which we're all a part of, that's not really being taken over that easily, because it has to do with design and engineering and specialty and all of that stuff. So to my students, I always say, maybe use the technology, use your software side, but like focus on the hardware side, because like robotics or fields in all of that stuff, manufacturing, that's not really gonna go away. That's only gonna get stronger, and AI is only helping with that, sort of, you know. I think sometimes it's focusing on the positive things instead of the fears, and the world these days are focusing on fear too much instead of the positive things, especially with technology. If you look at the 50s, where we were thinking of technology as this positive thing, the space race and all of that stuff, I always would love that to come back a little bit more, sort of, you know, but we are all part of that and we can all do that.
Yeah, see, I know we're always going to need a guitar player, I hope, I assume, but maybe from your perspective as an artist, is it maybe one of the developments, for sure, probably social media, that you not only need to be a virtuoso at the guitar, but also social media savvy, or what would you say?
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, it's so important. You cannot not be on social media. But then I also have a lot of respect towards it, because the future, I mean, it's changing so fast. Things come up really quick. Things change. Like, we had MySpace, then that was gone. Then there was Facebook.
That's
then
been
you
a
kind
while.
of like, yeah, and then you go to Instagram, and then there's TikTok. So for myself, I know that I need to be present everywhere, but I also have a lot of respect that all of these things might fall apart really quickly one day. So for me, it's important to kind of like have your fan base safe. And it sounds old school, but I still work with newsletter, and I have my fan base that I connect with on newsletters, to kind of be safe that whatever the future brings with all the social media stuff, I'm still kind of safe. But yeah, it's like you have to be a part of it, and I had to get more involved in it, be more present, because it's like, it's the thing everyone uses, especially the young generation. Like,
but I mean, what's at the core maybe is, even if the technology changes, you have to be able to build relationships with your colleagues, with your fans, and maintain that.
You have to interact with your fans. You have to be able to show and present the world your music and what you do, and that's, there's no way around that.
But also what's interesting for what you mentioned before, for new generations growing up, because they might not like the same things that we do, or they might not like it in the same way, or the way that they get information feeds or such things, you know. So I think for that reason, it's important to like just look and to see what other generations are up to. And it's also really fun for us to keep that curiosity as well, right? So that's kind of the funny thing about that.
But I mean,
I do agree the newsletter is a good way to.
Yeah, right.
But is that maybe an interesting takeaway because you are in a technical profession? Maybe some people actually choose a technical profession because they don't like so much the human side of things, but you probably don't get around it if you really want to build a long-lasting career,
sort of.
no? You sort of need to establish some, at least, relationship-building skills.
Yeah, I think you need it. There's no way around. Like, even for myself, how did my career start? I was posting videos on YouTube. That's a connection that I got myself out into the world. So that's, yeah, we kind of need it. And I mean, it can be really positive because it makes it so much easier to reach people. Like, if we wouldn't have the whole online thing, I would have to play like 100 shows a year and try to play in the whole world and have like maybe 10 people showing up. So there's a lot of positive aspect to that whole being out there on social media and make use of it.
Your thoughts? Anything you would say if you're young and building a career, this is something you really should be aware of or
No, the social bit is definitely important. I mean, here we work in production, right? So it's people's industry. The productions are based on teams, so that's definitely important. And I think even though there's a lot of development, technical development, it's always good to understand where we come from and why we're doing this. So any kind of knowledge related to whatever, you know, if you're going to go into staging or lighting or audio, anything will be helpful.
Now, I promise that we're going to finish off with your highlight in your career. You know, this one moment where maybe if things are not running smoothly, you can think back and be like, this is why I do it. That's been really great. Something you'll remember maybe even after you retire.
For me, it was the whole tour with Helene Fischer and Cirque du Soleil that we did in 2023, because I was like pampered like a baby. It was so comfortable.
That's funny. So it wasn't 1,000 people
space
in the audience, but it was the backstage catering. Or
yeah, it was the catering. We had like a masseuse, because if you play 5 shows a week, it's really demanding as a musician.
Yeah.
And we had like physical therapy. We had a whole fitness studio on tour with us. And for me, being on that tour, I had my backliner. So I went on stage. I got my guitar I had new strings put on the guitar. It was tuned perfectly. If I said I need a coffee, I'll get a coffee. So it was just really, it was a lot of luxury for me, especially where I come from with my own music, where I do everything myself. And being in a situation to experience that and being taken such good care of, where all you have to do is do what you love, go up there, perform, and when you're pampered like that, you're able to perform at your very best. And that was just like, I felt really appreciated, and I knew, okay, like I went through a lot of hard years, a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, but it totally felt worth it. It feels worth it a lot of the times, but that was where I felt like, okay,
nice.
Everything was totally worth it, and I'm grateful that I get to experience highlights like this.
Nice. With regards to time, I have to speed up. I have like 2 minutes left, but Anouk, your highlight. I'll give you a moment to think about it, and I'll pass on to you, Linnea. Now you're an entrepreneur, so if you want to have a massage and great catering, you have to pay it for yourself.
Or
probably
we all go
something
on
else.
tour with Yasi.
Yeah.
You'll just come visit me.
Or visit Yasi backstage. Now that we have the network connection going on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. No, it was definitely being surrounded by people who believed in me 2 years ago, and to be able to found my own distribution company. That was a really big deal.
So really owning your company, having built something from the ground up yourself.
And I, to be honest, like initially, I wasn't sure I could do it, and I thought I'd need a lot more support, like from my father, for example, because he's done that already. And I thought, I'd need a lot more support. And then, at some point, I realized I can do this. Like I can do this.
So we're coming back to what
deal.
you mentioned earlier, is really like not underestimating yourself.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I recently got an email of an ex-student of mine who is now at a really high position at a company in America, and she was thanking me for it. And in specific, she said that she thanked me for like believing in her because she was a little bit a hard student to teach things to. But when she finally got it, she was on fire, sort of, you know. And yeah, that email, like she wrote it really nicely, and that's really got to me. So, yeah.
Which resonates exactly with what you mentioned already and seems to be a common thread throughout the panel discussion, is really having other people who believe in you, who are a step ahead and support you, and actually take the time to reach out and really care for you, yeah.
Like, find your supporters and stay close to them.
Now,
I think it's important for us to have that in the back of the mind, that we can be those supporters for younger people and be in that place.
I went a little bit over time, but I think I can still take 3 minutes from questions from the audience. Do we have questions here? Just raise your hand. The first one to ask a question will get those Smarties. So, are there any questions in the audience? I'll borrow the microphone. Oh, yes, wonderful. I'll come to you.
So my question for you is it just women in lighting, or is it like women in profession, like event technicians? Because for me, I'm an event technician, and sometimes it's really hard for me to find a community because I'm pretty much alone, and I'm always a lone fighter. So I would be really interested if there's like a way to also be in this kind of network.
Yes, if you pass on your mic.
Sorry.
So, can you hear me? Yes. So, for this particular project, the main focus is actually women in lighting. But that said, you're most welcome to join like any meetups and things we do. So it's not that we're excluding anyone that's not specifically in lighting.
All right, thank you.
And there are other projects as well. I think networking, like you can, for example, look up Women in Live Music on Facebook. They include like all areas. But again, like you're most welcome. So go on womeninlighting.com and sign up for the newsletter. And
I will probably come over to your booth later on and
sure, yeah,
have
please
check it out. Thank you very much for your.
Just to mention, I won't be there all the time because I have to run around and do some other things. But yeah, please do come by.
I'm going to see them right after, so if you want to join me. Yeah? Okay. See you here.
Are there more questions in the audience? Just raise your hand, I'll be with you. And if not, use the opportunity and talk to them right now while they exit the stage rather than looking for them on the exhibition later on. So connect with them right here. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Linnea. Thanks a lot, Yasi. And thanks a lot, Anouk.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming, listening.